today I'm going to share with you how I do Stembands in my second grade classroom. Hello, my name is Melody Munch and I'm a second grade teacher in Oklahoma. And today I'm going to share with you how I do Stembands in my second grade classroom. On this cubby wall behind me is where I keep all of my Stembands, and I'm going to walk you through the different Stembands that I have because a lot of materials that I use are really common things you could buy easily, or you might already have some of them at your school. So it's a great way to add some options for your students. And I'm going to talk about how and when we use these bins. They have been a very beloved thing by my students, and I can't imagine going back to not having them. So I definitely think it's something you'll want in your room, and hopefully this will just give you some ideas on how to get started or add more Stemban options to your classroom. So before we get into the Stembands, first let's talk about how I use them in my classroom. These are an item that students can use on occasion if they are finished early with something. Not every time, because if we only have like 4 minutes before we're moving on to another activity, a Stemband's not really a great fit for them to get out, because then they'd be getting out a bunch of items only to put all of them away very quickly. So we don't get them out unless there's ample time to use them. And depending on the activity, like if we're in writing and students finished early, getting out a Stemban could be kind of distracting for the students that are still working. So in those times, usually I ask them to do something quieter, like reading or reading quietly with a partner, or doing an activity on their Chromebook that would be educational so that the other students can continue to focus. The main way I use them in my classroom is in the morning. So in my classroom, every morning when students come in, they have morning choice. They always start with their must do, which is doing a daily check-in on the computer. And then the second thing that they do is check their desk folder and see if they have any unfinished work. Now, that doesn't mean like work that we're going to work on later that day in class, but if there's like something they didn't finish that was supposed to be finished from a previous day, they catch up on that. These are all little condiments. I will show you the slide in just a minute, but the must do is a little mustard picture. The ketchup is a little bottle of ketchup, and then it's may do time. And for may do's, it's always Stembands, which is like our morning choice, or they could do like a math game. So some students do really love a certain math card game that I have and love to play that, but most students are doing a Stemband. So they love that opportunity to play and connect with their friends and build different things. It just gets them creatively thinking, and it's a really great soft start to the day, something they're excited to do when they come in, and it just really helps us ease into the rhythm of our day before they have to like really start using all of those skills and thinking skills that we're going to be using the rest of the day. It's great for me too, because when they're using a Stemban, there's not an end goal in mind, so it's not something that like I need to check. So in previous times when I did physical paper morning work, it was always a bit of a struggle for me to juggle greeting students at the door and checking in with students who are trying to finish a piece of work from the past day, and then checking work if students were completing an actual like morning work page. Then that was kind of a struggle to also be checking that. So it's been really nice to eliminate some hurriness and to eliminate the unpredictable nature of morning work, always having to think of something for it, and we just don't do that anymore. There's not anything they have to learn how to do for the first time, because if they're completing something, it's something that they would be like had already been explained in class and they're just finishing it, so they should already know what to do. Stembands are just always something they're excited and eager to play with. And then, like I said, occasionally if there's an activity that they finish early with, for example in math groups, when the last math group is done with their math paper, I often let them get a Stemban because they've already done the other stations since they're the last group to come see me. And if we still have like 10 minutes left in the round that we're playing, then I'll give them the option to play a math game or to get out a Stemban, and they love that. Now let's take a look at what the actual Stembands look like inside this cubby. Before, in my past classroom, when I did not have built-in cubbies in the classroom, I put the Stembands on a cart. So it was more of like a reading group cart. Like typically teachers keep like materials for reading groups in it and it had little tubs, and I just transformed that into like our Stembands center. I have another teammate right now who uses a rolling cart, and she just has all of her Stembands stacked inside there. So there are many different great options, but I think definitely having a designated spot for them is key. Having a bucket is a very important thing for keeping all of your Stembands supplies together. If you have a smaller space for your Stembands, then these little art box or supply box type size might be perfect for putting in a rolling cart or even 2 rolling carts. So now let's look through each Stemband, and I'll kind of talk about how I got that material. A lot of these things can be ordered on Amazon, so I will link that below. But please know I did not purchase all of these things, so don't feel like you as the teacher have to do it all. Some of these were purchased from class wish list things and from Donors Choose. I made a Donors Choose list, and a lot of the items were sponsored for us through Donors Choose. And then some of the items were just things I had or they were in the classroom. So let's start over here. This Stemband does not get enough love. I'll tell you that too. I'll tell you how much use it's got in our classroom, but these were already in my classroom, and some of them I printed free off Teachers Pay Teachers. They're different designs students can use. They get a mat, and then inside the bin are tangram pieces, and they would have to create the picture using the tangram pieces. Those I think are especially great for younger grades. I wish that I could tell you that more of my students use these, because I think it would be a fun Stemband, but it doesn't get played with that much. Sometimes I wonder if it's just because they kind of forget about them, or they just kind of get in the habit of liking one of them, and so they just gravitate towards the ones they always pick. Each class is a little bit different because there are definitely some classes that have loved certain things over others. I'm too OCD to talk into this at the same time. I like have to put something away if it's in the wrong spot. Okay, so next Stemband would be the note cards. This has been hot and cold in recent years. This year it's cold. Nobody plays with the note cards, like hardly ever. But I definitely had my first class that I used Stembands with obsessed with the note card bin, because they would do tower challenges together, and they would stack triangle one and a flat one and see who could get it the tallest. They did so good, and I still do see students use these, but not a ton. So note cards are super cheap material that you can get probably from your front office, which is great. Tangrams were an item I already had in the classroom, so both of those were like free to me things to create a Stemband with, so those could be really great options for you. Next Stemband, we'll keep going this way, is Legos. My husband loved Legos growing up and had a big bin of them that he wants to pass on to our future children, and so he's letting us borrow them. They're on loan from my husband, and we just have this one big bin of Legos where they're all in the tub. And we also have a second bin of Legos over here that are, well, they were binned out. This one's empty. Clearly I need to update this system, but I'm just showing you where it's at. We're just being real. So that's the Lego bin. That's always pretty popular. I pretty much always have, especially boys, teens to love building things with the Legos, which is great. So getting those back into some good use. That was another free one. The Play-Doh bin is a loved bin. I do replace the Play-Doh every year, and during COVID I got each student their own Play-Doh and put their classroom number on it, and I've just continued to do that because it is something they really mush with their hands quite a bit, and I do find if they're taking, like if they have their own, they tend to take care of it a little bit better. They just play with their own Play-Doh and they don't mix it together. But I did buy from Amazon a little bin of Play-Doh cookie cutters and rollers, and they always get these out. They always get these out. So love having that. We also use the Play-Doh in reading groups sometimes for what we call Play-Doh words, where they will roll out the dough to make their different spelling words or phonics words that we're using. So that has been a great material to have, and personally I like that they're not sharing it anymore, but if you don't mind doing that, then you could also have them share Play-Doh. That could be, if you get to make your own supply list for your school, that could be a very easy material. It's like 50 cents a Play-Doh cup at Walmart, so you could do that, or you could get a set on Amazon check on Prime Day, they often have it discounted. On to the paint bin. We have watercolors here. All of these paints I found, I believe, at a garage sale that somebody was like not even charging for. It was like a discard pile. So I snagged all of those. Could also find those on Amazon, I'm sure, as well. And then I just keep blank paper and some coloring page paper in a drawer over here by the stem bin, and they can pull from there to paint. We also keep a little bucket for water, and I just send someone, whoever wants to paint goes to the watering fountain. Here it is. I just bring our little metal bucket. This was $1 from Target, and they fill it up, and then if the time is up, they go throw it away. So I do have them ask to go fill this, because if there's only like 3 minutes left before an activity moves on, or even 5 minutes, I'm probably gonna be like, yeah, not enough time to paint. There has to be a good amount of time, like 8 to 10 minutes for me to say, yeah, it's enough time to paint. Rain flakes are next. So rain flakes are a great material that this year has been moderately used. I would say Play-Doh, high use, Legos, high use, paints are pretty high use depending on the time. But the rain flakes, I'd probably rate in the middle, maybe like a 6 on the usage scale, because I don't see them used every day. And sometimes they just aren't having the patience to build things, but there are a lot of cool things you can build. They just integrate together. So if you have a vision for what you're building, you can especially get to something cool. But the other thing about them is that when you're done with them, they are quite tedious to like pick apart. It's kind of a slow process. So maybe that's why they don't get used very as often, but those are pretty inexpensive, and I ordered those on Amazon. Now we are at magnets. This was some things that were left over here in the classroom. All of like these little metal things are part of that. And then I did order a pack of these magnet things from Amazon. They do get used a lot, but they are maybe one of my least favorite bins because they're so small. The pieces are so small that I often have struggles getting them to clean up well. I mean, it's not every day. They do know that the stem bins go away if they're not getting cleaned up well, so they are always doing their best to clean them up, but they're just little pieces, so they just get missed sometimes when they're cleaning them up, and then I have to ask, oh, okay, whoever was cleaning, let's go finish. There's more pieces over here. So they just are a little bit tedious in terms of that. So I would probably say 2nd grade and up would be great for those. If they're younger, you just would really have to train them on cleaning up because those little pieces just tend to get out of their hands and spread around, but they do really love them. These connecting blocks don't get played with near enough in our classroom. Perhaps they just don't really know what to build with them, but they can be really fun. They were on Amazon, but they were a part of our Donors Choose. So that is how we got those. Okay, let's go on to the cups. You can find little Dixie Cups anywhere. They love building towers with these. I say it gets very well used. I tend to replace the cups about every year because, as you can see, they do kind of get worn out. But I may have had these cups for 2 years. But they do love building cup towers with those and seeing how high they can stack them. Let's move to the connecting straws now. This is another material that the students love, very highly used. But these little connector pieces, I don't love finding them places, and the straws tend to just spread sometimes. I do love this material because they can build so many amazing things. I keep this little straw constructor guide in here so they can be inspired. I really like our room to remain clean and tidy, and so my students know that whenever it's time to clean up stem bins, they really need to be helping clean up that stem bin, or it won't be something we get to keep playing with. So we talk about how to put them away, and they really have done a great job. I just put a 2-minute countdown timer on, and they know when they see it, they're all reminding each other it's time to clean up, and they do a pretty good job. There maybe been a couple times where I'm like, okay, you need to stop playing, the timer is on. They know when the timer's on, it's time to clean up. So really they do a pretty good job, but this just does have lots of little pieces, so it's something you have to kind of train them on to like really look for those and make sure they're putting them away correctly. The snowflake bin, this was a material I saw at the Target dollar spot one year in the summer, and I just grabbed a couple packages of them, but I would say they're not highly played with. I mean, you can make some fun things with them, but they maybe like a 4 on a scale of 1 to 10 on how often they get played with. They are just not as popular, perhaps because I don't have a ton of them either. This next material is something you probably have in your classroom as math supply. They are the connecting cubes. And my boys especially have really been playing with them a lot lately, building different kind of characters, I guess you could say, or trying to make them look certain ways. So they have been getting a lot of love lately, and I love that because they're already something that I had at this school and my past school. Now let's move to the most popular Stemban of all, the MagTiles. Also quite an expensive thing, so this is something that I got to be a donor's choose, and it's not the best representation of how we put them away right now. Usually they are stacked up a bit nicer, so of course I'm going to be redoing that because you know me, but typically they put them away really well, but these are out every single day. I don't remember exactly how many pieces she has. I want to say 150 perhaps, but I would say they have been a well worth it material for the classroom because of how much they get used. Like, there's not a day that goes by where we're not building castles or towers with them. They just love them, and I love that there's always like 4 or so kids playing with it and building with it, so a lot of students get the opportunity to use them. But I know that that is not a material that would be in a average teacher budget, so that would be a really good material to put on a classroom wish list, or to use gift cards with, or to use with donors choose, which is how I got mine. And I told my students when we got them, I said, this is a really expensive item, so it's going to be really important that we play with it well and clean it up well. And when I'm introducing Stembands at the beginning of the year, I do the same thing. Like, one of the first days of school, we will stop and talk about Stembands, and they get the opportunity to play with them. And I go through each and every one of these buckets just like I'm doing with you, and I tell them ways they can use them, and I show them how I expect them to clean up. Over those first weeks of school, I just usually make a time in the day because they're just learning so many procedures that they need a little extra break sometimes from like getting back into that rhythm of school. And so we'll do a little Stemban break, and they get so excited, and I let different students pick first. That way everybody's getting to try different ones, different Stembands, and they really learn how to use them well and put them away well. And we talk about cleaning up right away, all during that time. So it's not something I just throw them into. This is better the first day of school. You know, it's something that we do talk about. Okay, I think it usually looks something like that. It's not always, but usually they do at least stack by shape, so it's okay. All right, nearing the end, we've got the art supply bin. That's another Lego bin. That might be it. They used to build Jenga type towers with these little mini Jinga blocks. Haven't seen them do that very much lately either. So the last real material is the art bucket, which, you know, they could also use. They could also just draw with their art supplies they have in their desk, but I had a bunch of random stickers that were either being discarded by other teachers, or I had from my personal supply that clearly they've been being used, so yay for that. Like, I used to be into scrapbooking in middle school, and so I bought a bunch of stickers for things like that. And I also bought a bunch of teacher stickers when I first started teaching that I just never really used. So they became little options for this art bin, which really just is some stickers, some more stickers, and some markers that were like fun colors. That's really it. That's all that's in here. I did have like some fun gel pens in here until those ran out, and I also had some like special Crayola colored pencils that like you crank up from the bottom to sharpen, and then I had a little doodle book in here that they could tear out and draw with. So this is good. Now I've like cleaned up a little end of the year cleanup for these Stembands. But they do love the art stuff, but sometimes they don't even need an actual bin. They just, you know, draw something in their notebook or on free scratch paper. I would say maybe like a 5 on how often it gets used. It's not the most popular, but it goes through phases. And then like I put some seasonal stickers in there around winter and Christmas time. They love making Christmas cards with that stem bin. So that could be kind of a fun one to do seasonally. I think we've talked about them all. Other than that, I just have other like random student supply things over here. I keep some extra Play-Doh in case theirs does dry out. I think we have now talked about them all. Thank you so much for coming along on this stem bin tour with me. I hope it gave you some ideas of how you could use the stem bins with your students, and hopefully it will give you some inspiration to create a stem bin area for your class. I know your students will love it, and I will see you in the next video.